Psalm 34, first three verses says, I will bless the Lord sometime. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praises shall sometimes be in my mouth. His praises shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord by yourself. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. The power of a praising church. This psalm, like so many others, has its roots grounded in a historical occasion. And the historical context of this chapter can be found in 1 Samuel chapters 21 and 22. It's there that we find the writer David, who had just changed his behavior before Ahimelech as he was on the run from King Saul. King Saul was not happy with David and how David was being elevated by God. How many understand that some folk aren't happy when the Lord elevates you? They're not happy about the promotion that God is giving to you. And in this particular instance, the local women had been singing songs, and Saul didn't like the songs that they were singing. Well, they sang the song, Saul has killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s. And this saying displeased King Saul to the point that he wanted to take the life of David. Now notice, if you will, that this is the same Saul that David saved. This is the same Saul that was scared to go down and fight Goliath of Gath. And when David was just a boy, wanted to put his armor on David so David could go and fight. And David said, I can't wear your armor. That's another sermon in and of itself. Brothers and sisters, you can't wear my armor. You got to fight with what the Lord gave you. And David said, I'm just going to go with what God gave me. Went down with a slingshot and 5 smooth stones and did what no other soldier in Saul's army was willing to do. But now Saul sets his heart to kill David. And so David's on the run from Saul, and during that time, David wrote this particular psalm. He's found in the very land of Gath, the same place where Goliath was from. Automatically, I find problems with that particular passage because David runs for his life. Check this out. And he temporarily settles in Gath. Now, you might not think that's strange, but Sister Carla, I think that's strange because you've got to be able to help me because I'm having a difficult time understanding how do you find safety by running to the land of your enemies. Think about it. How do you go to the enemy's camp and find safety? How do you find rest among your enemies? And I know we used to sing the song, I went to the enemy's camp and I took back what he stole from me. But most of us recognize that's just a song. Y'all ain't going to help me preach in here now. Most of us do not take any comfort in the camp of our enemy. Matter of fact, we can't even stand to be around them. They come in the room. We want to leave the room. I can't stand being in the room with them. Y'all ain't going to be real with me now. But the Bible does declare in Psalm 110 and 1, it also declares, Luke 20 and 43, it declares in Acts and in Hebrews that God would make our enemy our footstool. Not our place of refuge, not seated by our side, but beneath our feet. As a matter of fact, in another psalm, David said that the Lord prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemy. You don't have to be worried about your enemy being in your presence. You don't have to be worried about who's talking about you or who's pointing fingers at you. Just sit down at the table. Go on and eat you a slice of filet mignon. Go on, sit down at the table. Eat you some candied yams, some macaroni and cheese, some black-eyed peas, some collard greens. Sit down at the table. and enjoy whatever God has prepared for you right in the presence of your enemies. And so King Achish here, King Achish is the king of Gath. And he's somewhat shocked when he discovers that David, who was on the run, was living among them. He was shocked, just like I'm sure that the president out there where Osama was found, I'm sure he was shocked when he found out Osama had been living there in Pakistan the whole time. Brothers and sisters, sometimes the best place to hide is right among your enemy. That's the place where folk least expect for you to be, is right among your enemy. And so King Achish looks at David and asks the people, why have you brought this madman to me? Now, those of you who are Sunday school scholars will remember that David had to act like he was crazy in this text. The Bible said he feigned himself mad. In other words, he had to literally act like he was nuts. He had to act like he lost his mind. Let me pause here and state for the record that everybody that acts like they're crazy really ain't crazy. Am I right about it? How many of you remember the original Tyler Perry play, Diary of a Mad Black Woman? See, the funniest character to me wasn't really Medea, it was Daddy Charles. Amen. And whenever Daddy Charles didn't want to answer a question, he pretended he didn't take his medicine and didn't know where he was. And Daddy Charles would say, what the day is. Amen. Am I right about it? When they asked, what's going on here, Daddy? I think I smell reefer in here. And he said, what the day is. Am I right about it? Everybody saying what the day is ain't really crazy. Everybody pretending like they don't know what's going on really know what's going on. The people around you may play like they're crazy, but they know what they're doing. And so David played like he was crazy. Now, that doesn't apply to everybody. There are some folk that are really crazy. Amen. Let me just put that little disclaimer in there. David played like he was crazy. Spittle ran down his beard. He was scratching on the gates of the city. And the reason David had to pretend he was crazy was because the custom of the day was that they would not kill or imprison those who were crazy or who they believed to be crazy. Today we call that using the insanity plea, right? When someone goes to court for some type of a crime in order to try to get out of paying the penalty for that crime, they plead insanity. And sometimes they will plead temporary insanity. Like, I just went crazy for the 5 minutes it took to kill him. Am I in the right house? David initiated the plan to act like he was crazy so that the king of Gath would not take his life. What I want to tell you here, brothers and sisters, is that fear will make you act foolish. And it will ultimately lead you to failure. You see, when we operate in fear, it will literally make you feel like you lost your mind. And that's why Paul spoke with the young preacher by the name of Timothy, and he encouraged him to be courageous in his ministry. For he recorded in 2 Timothy 1:7, God have not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And David was fearing King Saul, and now he was fearing King Achish, and he's on the run. And this is in strong contrast to what David wrote in an earlier psalm. Isn't it amazing how we can have such an experience with God, but then we allow circumstances to change what we feel about the very God that we celebrated just a little while ago? Isn't it amazing how we can celebrate the victories that God have placed in our life, and then somewhere down the line the enemy can cause a certain situation to rise in our life, and then we start doubting the same God that we were shouting about last week? Notice, if you will, in an earlier psalm, if you go to 7 chapters forward, look at David's proclamation in Psalm 27.